Where have all the good men gone? There's article after article after article, all with the same title. You know, with this many examples of the same old stereotype, maybe there's a little something to it, you know? There's even a subreddit named after the phrase, which describes itself as a reply to r/nice guys. And the stories on here range from a healthy dose of schadenfreude to downright depressing. I, 32 female, want children so badly right now, and I thought I felt better adjusted to waiting for the right time, but my boyfriend's brother and sister-in-law are having a third baby and I'm crying. I have a boyfriend that I love very much, but just before I got with him, he quit his job to find work he could be passionate about. I've never been with a man who has money. I've asked him if he thought he'd be ready in 5 years and he doesn't know. What if I'm infertile by the time we're ready? What if he never wants kids? This person seems like they might have made a few mistakes here and there, but overall has some legitimate complaints and concerns about her life. Compare her with this, though. I honestly don't think I liked you. I like the attention you gave me. Jesus. I'm just looking for half of everything you own. Holy fuck. Cash at me and feed me and my kids. Damn, I guess we really are in late-stage capitalism. Our romantic relationships have been substituted with economic transactions. 8 months pregnant, still hot. I just need a dick in my life. It seems like you've already had a bit too much dick, don't you think? Don't like losers. I have 3 beautiful babies at 23. It sounds like you might be the loser here, Avril. You know, even just reading this stuff, it's kind of depressing. I can entirely understand how people fall down the incel hole on a daily diet of this garbage, plus being unlucky romantically in their own lives. And in fact, the percentage of American adults not having sex has reached a record high. It's 1 in 4. Why is this? What's preventing people from fucking? Is it video games? Sure, we blame everything else on video games, so why not this too? I mean, video games are pretty good right now, 10 cents aside. In a general social survey, 23% of over 18 said they lack intimacy in their lives. And according to Fox News, a large proportion of these people are 20-something men. And hey, just to hammer the point home, look at this related article. Woman has 7 one-night stands in 7 days. It was exhausting. Well, I bet it was. I don't know if you recall this, but back in 2009, OkCupid revealed some interesting info from their app's backend. Men on the site tend to be more generous than women when it comes to rating attractiveness, leading to a nice bell curve with the bulk of ratings falling around average. Women, on the other hand, are harsh with their ratings. According to the study, they rate a whopping 80% of men on the site as below average. My first guess was that there was an issue with self-selection, like unattractive men congregating on the site for whatever reason, but the study includes photos of 4 pretty normal-looking guys who were all rated to be unattractive. When you bring all of this information together, you get 2 reasonably clear pictures in your head. One, that in a relatively sexually open society like ours, most women choose to mate up, preferring to share higher status men with other women over getting a lower status man all to themselves. And 2, despite this meaning that most women have regular sex and most men don't have regular sex, in the long run, neither gender is happy. And in fact, women are so unhappy they're writing even more articles about it. If you're the only single person in your friend group, this will be so relatable. My singleness makes my friends uncomfortable, but dating doesn't fit into my life right now. The best singlehood advice for your college years, according to 6 women. The best dating advice for your college years, according to 9 women who have been there. And you know what? Some of this advice is really terrible. Don't try to find the person of your dreams in college. You have your whole life ahead of you to settle down and get serious. So spend this time dating around, playing the field, and having a ton of safe sex. Yeah, there's some pretty fundamental problems with that. How to deal when you're the last single person in your friend group. A few years ago, most if not all my friends were single. On any given weeknight, I'd meet with 1 or 5 of them for a drink, and we'd swap stories about bad dates, bad sex, and bad crushes who refused to give us the time of day. Look at how this paragraph is structured. You're single and lonely. Your complaints are that the sex you're having is bad, the men you really like are unattainable, and the men that you go on dates with just don't work out for whatever reason. Either you need to lower your standards or raise what you're offering, because clearly guys aren't sticking around. How did I become the last single person in my friend group? I'm pretty sure I covered this article in another video once, but I have to bring it up again because holy shit, the entitlement of this woman is incredible. When I was younger, I took it for granted that my friends would always be available for hungover brunches and emergency threesomes. But now, seeing my friends usually means being the one single person amid a mob of couples who treat me either like hired entertainment or like their problem child. There's no other way to look at it. I am a hashtag victim of couple privilege. As a millennial feminist, allow me to run with this victim thing. No, fuck off. You are quite possibly the least victimized person I've ever laid my eyes on. So far, we've been having a good old time shitting on entitled women who have yet to realize that they've wasted quite possibly the best years of their life dicking around, pun intended, and that the window for entering into that perfect relationship they've been putting off for nearly 20 years is rapidly closing if it's not closed already. And it has been fun, but the problem isn't all women. I've spoken at length about incels on this channel before. And let's be honest, most people who call themselves incels are people who haven't put any fucking effort into actually getting the sex, the attention, or the romantic fulfillment that they crave. Being attractive takes time and energy. Years of it, honestly. The incels face a completely different problem than women do, where women often get sex and attention but not romantic fulfillment. And the incel might say to that, hey, at least they're getting 2 out of 3, that's better than me. And they might be right for a little bit. But it only takes a cursory glance at these articles to make you understand that 2 out of 3 won't give you a meaningful life. Any incels that might be listening, let me fill you in. Having empty, meaningless sex with somebody you don't care for is a lot lonelier than having no sex at all. In a strange way, you've kinda lucked out. In the same way that a person who's really craving a cigarette or a drink or some McDonald's or something, and then doesn't get it, has also lucked out. It doesn't feel like it, but you have. That being said, nothing I've brought up so far is a solution to any of these problems, is it? Most people don't want to dig in deep and really snuff out what's going on here. They just spit out idiotic ideas like, women are freezing their eggs because men are unstable. Yeah, that's it. It's just men's fault. There's nothing underlying here. Blame the men's. No, there's very clearly something more here. Let me ruminate on it for a little bit. When the birth control pill became widely available, it was a revolution on par with the steam engine or the computer. It fundamentally changed the way we lived our lives. For the first time in our history, we could reliably decouple sex from procreation. Nature's coupling of those two things was why the most successful societies practice monogamy and marriage. Societies that aren't monogamous are tremendously unstable. Because if low-status men see no way to attract women, they're less likely to reproduce and form a family. So rather than build society up for the benefit of their family, they tear society down because why the hell not? They've got no stake in it. And marriage became the ideal way to raise a family because you've got 2 complementary adults manning the oars, so to speak, able to fill the gaps of each other's weaknesses, pool resources, divide labor according to natural inclination, all of that stuff. Of course, the birth control pill didn't cause us to instantly revert to a polygamous society again, but it did allow people to experiment with sex in a safe way. And that was good for a lot of reasons. But it also allowed people to have less children at a later stage of life. When you had 5 kids by your early 20s, you weren't helicopter parenting them. You had your hands full, and they were parenting each other to an extent. But when you have 1 kid at 35, there's every motivation to overprotect. All of your eggs are in one basket, so to speak. And to me, it seems like that overprotection has spread into the rest of society almost like a plague. Overbearing parents demand the primary school system overprotect their single precious kid. And then they demand high schools do it. And then they demand universities do it. And then they demand workplaces do it. And suddenly you have an entire class of people agitating that the whole of society be a walled garden. I think birth control might have caused the social justice problem in the first place. Not because birth control is itself bad, but because birth control allowed a whole swath of people who were naturally risk adverse to not actually be forced by the circumstances of their lives to face risk and overcome it, like they'd have to get on with if they had a family, and instead continue to play it safe, and play it safe, and play it safe. And that's not even talking about the problems of children born outside of nuclear families. Kids that are born into a fully functioning family unit might be overprotected, but kids born to a single mom are just fucked without the resources and stability that 2 parents can provide. The widespread social change of having the ability to self-regulate your fertility has rendered human sexuality nearly unrecognizable from just a century ago, and we haven't had a proper adult conversation about the rules of this new way of interacting. Before, the rules were simple. You get married, you have sex, you have kids. It was limiting, it was oppressive, but it was a necessity that secured society's stability. When birth control first hit the scene, it was a different rule set for a while. Everybody have as much sex as you can, and it's easy to see why. It's not hard to understand the human proclivity for adventure and all of that. But even as it seemed that the rules had changed, they really hadn't, at least not fully. AIDS taught us that. The unbelievable tragedy of single-parent households is still telling us that now. And it would seem that stuff like super gonorrhea will be telling us it longer into the future. Thanks, thoughts. But more importantly, what do we do with the whole sex situation now? Well, nobody knows because nobody wants to have a serious conversation about it. When is it a good idea to have sex? I don't know, do you? What does it mean that it's a good idea to have sex? I mean, before, that was easy, because it was don't have sex until you're married, but that's not coming back now. And what is consent, really? I don't mean to sound like an SJW here, but really think this through. People hammer on about consent, but I've heard hundreds of different definitions of the term, ranging from a simple yes to ongoing enthusiastic consent, to consent forms, to retroactive withdrawals of consent, to acknowledgement of nonverbal consent, to a complete dismissal of nonverbal consent. Here's how we're having the conversation about sex right now. It's the Me Too method. We don't know what the rules for sex are, but we're waiting until somebody does something that seems like it's violating the rules. Then we attack them on social media, we write hit pieces about them, we get them fired from their jobs or expelled from their schools, and then retroactively exclaim, this was the rule they seem to have violated. And that's a pretty terrible way to have the discussion. The sex conversation right now, especially in social justice circles, is an inherently contradictory mess. Social justice is most certainly born out of a strange mutation of on-campus party culture interacting with the children of helicopter parents. It's still wild and crazy, but also simultaneously expected to be safe and sterile. And those things just don't go together. Here's what I mean. Within social justice, absolutely every form of sexuality is valid and permissible, and you're not allowed to discriminate against anyone in any way related to sex. Meaning that if you don't want to have sex with a trans person, you're a transphobe. If you don't want to have sex with a black person, you're a racist. All sexual boundaries have to be as open as possible, and everybody has to be into as much as possible because that's the way to have a healthy, promiscuous life where nobody is oppressed, and sex is completely safe and fine in that regard. Simultaneously, alongside all of that nonsense, sex is also so fucking dangerous that you need to have enthusiastic ongoing affirmative consent where body language and nonverbal signals don't count, and where the yes you recorded on your cell phone is invalid the next day because the sex was bad. Social justice's attitude towards sex probably the single most contradictory ass-backwards thing about the whole philosophy. And that's the thing with consent. The SJWs might have a point, but their point also completely invalidates their worldview. You have people right now who are the next day saying stuff like, I feel used. Is regretting sex the next day evidence that you didn't consent? Legally, certainly not. Your partner shouldn't be prosecuted for rape if you regret having sex with them. But at the same time, clearly you didn't think the sex all the way through, did you? It might have felt good last night, but it doesn't feel good today. And with the absence of marriage as a shorthand of rules governing sex, when is it appropriate for you to give consent? And what should happen when you give consent inappropriately? I don't know. That's another of those conversations we're actively avoiding having. It seems to me that the social justice conception of sex is that people should be able to do whatever they want, with whoever they want, whenever they want, with no consequences to those acts. And alongside that, they want there to be no problems with consent, despite actively refusing to properly define what consent is and how to give it. In my opinion, it's this monumentally stupid idea that's causing pretty much all of our sex-related problems right now, in one way or another. STDs, abortion, single parenthood, consent problems, Me Too, casual dating and cheating and ghosting, men withdrawing from romance entirely, and women having way too much sex but getting no love out of it. It's all coming from this boneheaded definition of what a healthy, unoppressive sexuality should be. As always, I've gone off on a tangent again. I seem to do that way too much in my videos. Maybe I should watch it a bit. But in the end, what do we do about all this? Men, the solution is not to become bitter incels, continuing down the rabbit hole of shitty subreddits with pruned examples of the worst of humanity, until you blame everybody but yourself for your shit life. And women, the solution is not to assume that you're going to be as physically attractive at 35 as you were back when you were 20, even though you hit your physical peak during your formative years, and it's going to be a hard mindset to break. As far as I can see, the way forward, for men and women, is to value yourselves appropriately. That's not me beating the self-esteem drum, that's a load of nonsense. I mean, value yourself appropriately, an appropriate amount. Don't value yourself for doing nothing. Take on a task that, if you saw somebody else accomplish, you'd look on them a bit more favorably, and then look on yourself a bit more favorably in turn. Every bit of self-help advice always includes a call to hit the gym, and being physically fit is important. You live longer, you're more physically attractive, you have more energy, you're more capable. But the most important reason that nobody ever talks about is that after you've sculpted your dream body, or hell, even after you've completed just one workout, you can sit back like God on the seventh day and say, I did it. Me with all of my problems, my inaccuracies, my inadequacies, I pulled this off, and that's something to be proud of. Of course, it doesn't have to be the gym. You can do this with your job, your finances, your family and friends, your house, your spiritual life, your hobbies, your side projects, your YouTube channel. Take what you've got and spruce it up the best you can, even if it's only a little bit of stuff and a little bit of sprucing, because that shit matters. And once you've done that, you'll find that you have the capability of doing it a little bit more the next day. Fix yourself up. Become a better version of you. Eventually, and it will take some time, don't get impatient, you'll fix yourself up enough that other people, including romantic partners, will be drawn to you. If you set your house in order and you have an interesting life and you have something to offer, people will seek you out, regardless of gender. And even if you get tremendously unlucky and nobody comes along, you'll still have a better life you can enjoy, and that's not nothing. But be all you can be. It's what men want out of their women. It's what women want out of their men. Nobody wants to date a bitter incel that thinks it's somebody else's fault that they're unattractive. And nobody wants to date a shallow thought who has sex on the first night and blames men for not sticking around. Have some fucking respect for yourselves. Recognize all the ways in which you suck, and rather than blaming the patriarchy or the cock carousel or whatever other dumb excuse you pull out of your echo chamber, take some command of your life. You'll find someone. Hell, I did. But I was willing to be single for years and polish myself up to do it. If you can build something you're proud of, if you have something to offer, if you're humble, and most importantly, if you stay away from people who have nothing to be proud of, nothing of value to offer, and no humility, like, say, every single person whining on the internet that no good partners exist, from incels to thoughts, then you will attract people to you. I believe in you. You can do it. I don't care what's next on the YouTube recommended list, even if it's one of my videos coming up on the autoplay. Turn this shit off and go work on something. I'm rooting for you.